Welcome to the world away.
Travel tales to inspire your wanderlust.
Welcome back to the world awaits. How is everyone? I hope you're all well. How's your week been, Val?
Oh, it's like just a turgid mess of things that I haven't yet done. But what I am doing, I've actually filed stories about my bargain basement flight with Air Asia from Kuala Lumpur to Melbourne. Let me tell you, if you want to carve your flight bill down to nothing, go on an airline that gives you nothing, and it's a beautiful thing, right? You get to KL. I mean, you get to pay for.
Isn't that raw dogging?
I did write it as the airline best for raw dogging because it's like you're like 8 hours, 7 hours from KL to Melbourne, no screens, no blankets, no eye masks, no food, nothing. But you get to bring all your own food on, which can I just say, I'm going to do a little plug for the interview later on, is a great thing if you're traveling with dietaries and you BYO and nobody frowns at you when you pull out your little pack of sandwiches or whatever. So I was writing about that one for the Sydney Morning Herald. Also, I've been writing about the Block Arcade, which is one of the National Trust Victoria's listed gems of Melbourne, because shopping and design are a match made in heaven, don't you think? Interestingly, it is modelled on the Galleria Vittorio Emanuele in Milan. So, and here's another budget tip. If you don't have the money for a plane ticket to Italy, the Block Arcade is the next best thing. So there you go. I'm giving it my all today. So what about you, Kirsty? What have you been up to?
Well, actually, as this goes to air, I would have just recently returned from Noosa, so I'm doing a bit of time travelling. I actually haven't been to the Sunshine Coast region, to this resort region town. If anyone doesn't know, I'm sure everybody knows and has heard about Noosa. Even Kiwis are love the Sunshine Coast. But I haven't been to Noosa for more than 15 years. Isn't that embarrassing? Isn't that so shocking? So anyway, I can't wait to go back. And it's whale season, so we're going to do some whale watching and all the things I love. We're doing hiking, biking and kayaking. So it's like a dream weekend for me. So yeah, can't wait.
Oh, that sounds awesome. Love whale watching. I swam with them down on the south coast of New South Wales last year. Very, very nippy. I think you're going to have much nicer, warmer weather in Noosa. So I'm looking forward to hearing your thoughts. It should be pretty quiet too because you're out of school holidays. Yay. Not that ever, like Noosa would ever compare to the overcrowded likes of, like Venice and Barcelona, which brings us, insert segue here, which brings us to the latest data from Deluxe Holiday Homes, which has analysed the annual international visitors at top tourism destinations to show you the top hotspots to skip in 2025.
Yes, and sadly, top of the list is one of my favourite destinations, which is Phuket. Although I have to say, I do love the quieter parts of Phuket. We normally go West Phuket when we go. But the data found that it is actually the most crowded city, so one to avoid this summer. I was actually surprised about this. And it says that they have more than 840,000 visitors per square kilometre, and with 3,392 attractions and an average summer temperature of 27.4 degrees Celsius, it can feel pretty packed. And the fact that many scenes in White Lotus were actually also filmed in Phuket means that it's no doubt going to get even busier. I mean, Thailand generally is going to get busier, right, because of the rise of set jetting.
Yeah, and the second destination on the list was another Thai destination, and that's the city of Pattaya. And it has nearly 180,000 visitors per square kilometre. So it's nowhere near as crowded as Phuket. But Pattaya still sees a large number of visitors because, as it says, it's got the best of both worlds, a bustling nightlife and beaches. And because a lot of the expats live there, I also thought that the certain particular bars were very much a draw card for Pattaya as well. The food is also subsequently really diverse as well, with expats and Thais there in the one destination.
Yeah, and third on the list was Paris, which it says has 166,600 visitors per square kilometre. So while it doesn't match the density of Phuket or Pattaya, the city still has massive crowds because of its landmarks, and we all know this. Paris has 10,000 tourist attractions, which is amazing, right? 10,000 tourist attractions. And also a slightly cooler summer temperature, it says, of close to 20 degrees. So it makes it a bit more comfortable than the southeastern places, but it still was number 3 on the not to go list.
Yeah, well, I mean, Paris is, it is the most visited city, just not in terms of density, but the most visited city in the world. So there's no surprises there. Barcelona, of course, follows Paris with 65,000 visitors per square kilometre. So it's a lot less crowded. But of course, anybody who follows travel would be across the mass protests there that are across Barcelona thanks to over tourism. And the report says that it actually has nearly 6,000 attractions, and the summer temperature is a whole lot nicer than Paris at nearly 24 degrees Celsius. It is going to be popular again. So those numbers aren't going to slow next year when Sagrada Familia's structural towers are supposed to be scheduled for completion. I have to say, I was chasing them for those dates of completion, and they were like, oh, yes, that's what some people say. Like, this was the press office for Sagrada Familia. They say, yes, that's what they're saying. And I'm like, what are you saying exactly? So, yeah, so there are reports that construction on the longest running construction site in the world will continue for decades after that.
Yeah, and just like what you said, Belle, we had the same feedback when we were there last year. The local guides were saying they were saying there's no way it's going to be finished, and they were saying that a lot of it is because of the locals. You know, the locals are opposing a lot of the extensions because there's some houses around there. So, and that the locals weren't happy about it. So that's what the local guides were saying, which was really interesting. And rounding out the top 5 is Miami, which ranks 5th, with close to 57,000 visitors per square kilometre. Although visitors to the US are dropping because of the Trump era, actually, the Flight Centre recently released some stats saying that it's had a 10% drop in profit due to backlash to Trump's controversial tariff and entry policies.
I don't know. I mean, I see different reports coming out every week about this, and some say that it's business as usual for Australians. Others say that there's been a massive drop. So, I mean, I think, you can see definitely between Canada and the US, like that is a clear and definite drop. But I don't know. There's just so much research coming out that even though, Flight Centre with that big drop is there, but then, they had a very strong May. So, but, if you're talking anecdotally, the US, that we had those US digital nomads on the other week, scroll back on the podcast and have a listen. And they said that the full impact to tourism in the US is years away from being felt. Others on that top tourist hotspots to avoid the summer are Kuala Lumpur, Dublin, Amsterdam, Milan, and Portugal. Probably put Greece on there at the moment because it has had such bad press from all of those terrible bushfires that are happening in the high temperatures. But look, if you're going to go to these places, the key is just to consider the fact that it will be busy and plan ahead. So you can always make attempts to avoid the crowds. I mean, Eiffel Tower in peak season in the heat. Oh, don't know about that one. This week, my guest is Maree Cameron. She is a presenter on TV and radio. She's a writer and a comedian. The girl has got an hectic schedule. She presents the House of Wellness, which is networked around the 9 radio. And locally in Melbourne, she does the Weekend Break with Grubby each Sunday on 3AW from 1 p.m. She also writes for Body and Soul as a freelance writer, and you might see her on Channel 7 with TravelOz.
Oh, I love Sarah Maree. She's just so vivacious. So it seems the obvious question, but what made you want to interview her on the pod?
Well, apart from being so vivacious, and a lot of people all know her from her work with TravelOz and radio. She is on the road constantly, but what you might not know is she manages this incredibly hectic schedule while juggling a number of health and dietary issues. So we are touching on how she manages as a neurodivergent traveler. And she shares some really fantastic tips as well for anybody who's looking to make their travel smoother for whatever reason. So take a listen. Sarah Maree, welcome to the World Awake. It is so exciting to have you on the podcast.
I honestly can't believe you asked me to join. The caliber of guests that you have had on. I love listening to the podcast, and I was beyond chuffed when you invited me on. So thank you.
No, we love having you on here because part of the reason is that you bring the drama and you bring the resolutions as well, because today we're going to talk, we're talking about being healthy and traveling healthily. And, there are so many things that we just some people take for granted. I take the ability to sleep standing up for granted, but that's not the case for everybody, as we're going to find out as we chat to you. So let's dive into it. Tell us a little bit about yourself, how you got into the media industry and in general, and travel specifically.
Been working in media for just shy of 2 decades now, predominantly in radio and in the last couple of years been doing a lot more focusing on television as well. Plus there's over the course of the time, there's new media that comes into the fold. So social media is part of that. And I had a bit of a moment a couple of years ago. I thought that I needed to get away from radio and just have a break. I felt like I'd been in a studio talking to myself for far too many years. And over the years, like I've done different radio shows and different hours, but I'd been working at Triple M and I just thought, you know what? I just need to get out, I need to do something different. And the entire time that I had been doing radio and television and a lot of sports presenting as well and emceeing, I was also writing. So I lived over in Canada, lived right across Australia, moving a lot for media. And you get in contact with local publications, local newspapers. There was also a bit of a writing element with some of the radio stations that I worked for, so writing content for their platforms. And I wanted to do a lot more focusing on that as well. A long time ago, I had a blog. I ended up cancelling that, just deleting that for a while. And I thought, you know what, I really want to go back to writing. I love it so much. And through comedy, I get to do a lot of writing as well. So I just wanted to dig deep and was super fortunate that Jamo hired me at Get Lost Travel Magazine and I was there as the assistant editor. And it was so much fun. And then I ended up going freelance and still write freelance and now write for Body and Soul as well. And am unbelievably fortunate to be one of the co-hosts for the House of Wellness, which is on 9 Radio on a Sunday morning with the divine Gerald Quigley. I just got so lucky having him as a co-host. So that's where I am now. So that's the shortest version of 20 years in media.
There you go. In a nutshell, one of the really interesting things when we first started talking about this was I saw on one of your socials you were talking about negotiating travel as somebody who's neurodivergent, and I kind of hadn't thought about this a lot, and then I thought, hang on, I'm putting myself into an airport. The most stressed I am in my life is that hour before you get to the airport. I am absolutely beside myself no matter how many times I do it. And I thought, that is such a stressful environment. How does anybody negotiate it? But talk to me about being a neurodivergent traveller.
Yeah, so my husband now knows that we've got a set procedure if we are flying domestically or internationally. The first time that we flew internationally together, he couldn't understand why I wanted to get to the airport so early. We got there so early that the check-in counter wasn't even open.
How early are we talking here?
Oh, it was just over 3 hours. I think we had to wait about 10 or 15 minutes for the check-in counter to open. And he was so unhappy. He was so unhappy. Anyway, got our coffees. We checked in. It was divine. And we got through, customs and all that kind of stuff. And you just don't know what's going to happen depending on the country that you're in. We were fortunate enough to have a credit card that would give us access to a lounge. So we went in and we just chilled out there. And he was like, why? Why all of this? And I was like, this is why I need to sit here now and relax. Like it's done. The heavy lifting, I want to do the big jobs first so that it's not weighing down on me. So yeah, I get to the airport a full 3 hours before an international flight. And if it's a domestic flight, I'm usually at the airport with an hour and a half to go because I want to have about an hour in the lounge beforehand, again, just to chill out and allow myself time. I got caught in traffic just the other day when I was flying domestically, and so that chewed into my time, which didn't make me feel good in the car. But I just need to be on time. I don't want to be having anxiety about being late. I don't want to have anxiety about missing a flight. I've only missed 2 flights in my life, a domestic and an international flight. Kills me to this day that I've missed those 2 flights. And I just can't have that again. So when you're neurodivergent, anxiety can be something that you are just living with and you don't realize that you are high functioning in that area and that other people don't think like that or start rolling those scenarios. And it's just about trying to alleviate as much stress as possible. So it's getting there early, it's packing the night before, packing shells, the best things ever. Again, my husband couldn't understand why I was making these investments in packing shells, but he's 100% on board. Travel toiletries so that I've got my skincare. I've got skincare that I take on the plane as well. So as we know, we can have all that moisture sucked out of our skin when we're flying. So if I'm doing a long haul flight, I'd take eye patches on domestic flights as well, but I'll take my face mask and my eye patches. And when they say, that we're about to start our descent, it's give or take, about 40 minutes if you do international, yeah?
Yeah.
So that is where I get rolling. That's where the face mask comes out. That's where the toner comes out. I'm landing with the best face that you could see. I don't fly with makeup on either, but those are just things that make me feel better while I'm flying. I've just got to feel clean and ready to go and have my toothbrush and some sanitary wipes and be clean and organized.
How's that different to somebody just being kind of organized as well? I mean, I've got my little routines and stuff like that and things that I do. And yes, I have put those, the under eye patches.
Oh,
yeah. Yeah, done those in flight. I don't think that I've done a full face mask, but a woman did one recently on a day flight in economy. And I had to, like where everyone had fallen asleep, woke up. I had my daughter with me and she woke up and like screeched. This is this good, the full Anthony Hopkins look going on right beside her, scared the pants off me. But back to the seriousness of it, with somebody who's neurodivergent, I mean, what if it doesn't go right, what's the ramifications?
Oof, it's not a good one, that's for sure. I guess what makes it different is that there's an order that all of that has to take place, and it's the same. It is like clockwork. I also travel with earplugs as well. So once I start to become really overstimulated, the earplugs have to go in, and my husband knows that as well. And yeah, I've got to distract myself. I've also got the Calm app, which was probably one of the best investments that I ever made. A friend of mine actually said to me, this is a couple of years ago, I was traveling around Australia just doing all the comedy festivals, and I was really struggling to sleep on flights. I was just really anxious at that time, and I couldn't calm down. Normally I can sleep on flights, but I couldn't. And he just said to me, we tried listening to sleep stories, and that changed my life. So I bought the Calm app. There's a bunch of sleep stories that I have. I don't listen to any new ones when I need them. If I'm on a plane, it's one that I'm already familiar with, that I love, and I'll usually be asleep or calm and rested within 10 minutes just to help me self-soothe, basically. And so if something does go wrong, and I don't know, it's a flight delay or my luggage hasn't turned up, that's happened a couple of times. I've got, air tags in my luggage, which is super handy to know because sometimes they haven't known when my luggage is and I've been able to tell them where my luggage is. So when those sorts of things happen, Calm app is on. I start listening to, if it's not sleep stories, it's something else. Try and have a moment, meditate, do mindfulness. I have to do things to try and reset. Otherwise, I become an awful, agitated person.
Right. Okay. So you've mentioned a couple of things in there. I'm just going to pull them back out because I did want to talk to you about sleep. We have talked about sleep. I think being 5'3" helps me with the whole sleep thing because, if you're a 6'7" person trying to cram yourself, and I was on an Air Asia flight. I was just writing a review for it this morning, and there was a guy beside me who was about 6 foot, and he really broad shoulders. I mean, so I don't have those problems of cramming myself into a little puddle. But let's talk about how you sleep successfully on flights because I think you've got loads in there. You've mentioned the Calm app. Is that and I'll put these in the show notes as well. But also, what's a sleep story?
Sleep stories are just beautiful stories that have been recorded by lots of different people. There's so many different celebrities that have done it over the years, and you can find them on YouTube as well. You don't need to have the Calm app, but if I'm just opening my Calm app right now, and if I go to sleep and then I'll go to sleep stories, there's a whole bunch of people. Oh, actually, one lady I love, Tabitha Brown. I adore her. I don't know if you know her. She's a wonderful cooking influencer online, and she's just got a gorgeous voice, and it's just soothing, like it's just a gorgeous, soothing voice. My favorite sleep story that I listen to quite often, this is my I have tried everything else and nothing is working. This is the sleep story that puts me to sleep every time. It's called Blue Gold, and the voiceover for it is Stephen Fry.
Right. Okay. I'm with you on this one now. So if you set on, you've got headphones, or do you use earpods? Or?
Yeah, I use headphones. Yeah, I've just found one from Scottie Pippen. Hey, is that your jam? You can listen to a sleep story from Scottie Pippen. I get it. He's got the voice for a sleep story. So, they talk closer to the microphone. They really pull you in. They try and make you feel safe and secure so that you can sleep. They talk like that.
It's a bedtime story. Okay, right.
It is. It's bedtime stories for adults, and it's the best.
Okay, I'm with you now. So no, so headphones or earpods?
I'm a earbuds kind of gal. I'm old school. Plug in earbuds. That's me.
Right. Okay.
Yeah.
And are you a sleep mask person, a non-sleep mask? Because I've got to say, if you're going to sleep, you need to do sensory deprivation.
Yes, I am just really good at sleeping now, so I don't need a sleep mask. I've got a large head, so sometimes they just simply don't fit on my head. Thank you to the airlines that have gifted them to me in the toiletry packs. They don't often fit this head of man, but I can just, when you adjust the headrest on the plane, like even it's just economy, you're sitting up straight, I can sleep Melbourne to Sydney. I can sleep Melbourne to Adelaide. I can sleep Melbourne to Launceston. Okay. Look, I can sleep. If I've got time and I'm out, I have flown domestically 8-10 times this month already. I've slept on just about every single plane and missed the food and coffee service every single time.
I don't think you're missing much with the coffee service myself. But anyway, that is a really impressive track record. But interestingly, I mean, missing the coffee is one thing, missing the food is another one. But that brings me into the next question, because you also travel with dietaries, don't you?
Yes, I do.
How does that work?
Yeah, so gluten-free.
Tell us your dietaries, gluten-free.
Yeah, gluten-free. I have a shellfish allergy and I don't have pork. So those are my dietaries. I often just go for a vegetarian meal when I'm traveling. And for instance, if I'm flying, I fly with Virgin a lot. I recently flew with Qantas, but I just have my aligned preference with Velocity. I go into the Melbourne lounge. They've got gluten-free food. They'll make me a gluten-free toasty. Just go line up and ask them very nicely, and you'll have a lovely little gluten-free toasty, which they make behind the counter away from everybody else. So if you're celiac, that's actually really fantastic. For me, I have an intolerance, so cross-contamination, I'm fine. But I'm really impressed by the snacks and the lengths that Virgin go to in their lounge for that. So yeah, I'll just go get myself a little gluten-free toasty. That's probably why I'm able to sleep on the flight, because I've already eaten and done everything in the lounge. And then if I've got 1,000 things that I need to do, I write that out on a notepad, empty my brain, and then I get onto the flight and I'm good to go. In terms of international, look, it can vary. Sometimes you can fly an airline and they've got a great stir fry and you can have that, and that's okay. And then there are other times where there isn't necessarily a meal available. Very few and far between, but it does happen. It does happen. But if I'm just going for, say, a vegetarian gluten-free meal, I think that is way more common these days.
Yeah, I think the pork thing is interesting, because I noticed I've lived on and off in the Middle East and then coming back to Australia, and you'd find Qantas, like those choices, you wouldn't think about it, but they've just got pork and pork on it. You've got a pork sausage and then you've got some bacon on the side. You'd be like, yeah, look at that. I can have all types of pork now. Yum. So that has kind of struck me, coming from a very non-pork society back into, a reintroduction to something where ham is a vegetable, basically. Do you travel with snacks in your bag as well? I mean, yeah. What do you throw in there?
I normally have gluten-free bars of some description, just as a safety precaution. If it's a long haul, if it's short, it's fine. If it's anything under 6 hours, I'm going to be okay. I'm not going to be malnourished on the other end. But if the flight's longer than that, then yeah, I'll normally have a couple of snacks. And I think it was when my husband and I were coming back from Canada, and then I had to declare the ones that I hadn't eaten, because the food was great when I was flying back. It was perfect and suited my dietary requirements. My husband's like, can you just put it in the bin? I don't want to line up in the declaration side. Just get rid of it. So just binned it, walked away, let it go. But yeah, I have to fly with snacks. Absolutely.
Yeah. And I think anyone who's ever flown with children has always got like a nose bag that they're emptying out at the other end of half-eaten snacks from their kids and stuff. Yeah, been pinged by the dogs too many times that I can't count. In your role, you've been in the public eye for many years, and part of that is you're an ambassador for a number of organisations that deal with health conditions, and those health conditions, I told you, she brings the drama, but those health conditions also impact upon how you travel. So tell us about those organisations that you are an ambassador for.
Yeah, so I've been an ambassador with the Australian Cervical Cancer Foundation since 2011, I think. Towards the end of 2011 is when I jumped on board with them. And then for Endometriosis Australia, I want to say that was around 2015 that I became an ambassador with them. And I'm fit and healthy now and super thankful for the journey that I went on when I had cervical cancer. I was diagnosed very young when I was 22. And it just opened me up to a whole world of different, gynecological issues that people born with female reproductive organs can experience. Then going down the diagnosis route of endometriosis, that can be a little problematic for some. Some people have it. And they don't even know that they've got it until they're trying to have babies. And then you've got other people who have it and are acutely aware of it, and it affects every second that they are awake. And I guess I've experienced both ends of those spectrums. I think I had a memory pop up today, actually. My last laparoscopy was 3 years ago today, for a clean out, as we call them, for some excision surgery. So you can experience lower back pain, abdominal pain. Endometriosis can grow wherever it wants. It's most often found within the pelvis and in tricky little spots called like the pouch of Douglas, which is between your bladder and your bowel. And I think just about anybody can experience bowel issues when they're flying because of the pockets that you get, the air pressure, also the food that you might be eating as well. So try and combine that with somebody who has growths and lesions and cysts from endometriosis. It can be quite difficult. So that's another thing that I'm very wary of. I pull back on food. I can't get too excited when I'm flying. Some people want to get on, they want to have the shampoos and they want to have the food. And I remember the first time that I flew business, I was like, oh my gosh, this is going to be so exciting. And then I saw the food. I was like, I can't. This is too much. It's too heavy. I'm going to struggle at the other end. So I have to just be conscious of the amount that I'm eating, what I'm eating, and find things that are basically easy to digest for me while I'm traveling to make that flight and the day that I land a lot easier, particularly on a long haul flight. And you can even take things like hotties. I love hotties. They're stick-on heat patches. Don't stick them directly onto your skin because they warm up so much that you can get blisters. But if you wear a cami underneath and you can stick it on top of the cami, when I'm flying, sometimes I have them like shoved down the back of my high waist jeans. You'd never even know. You just get them from Chemist Warehouse in a pack, and I love them. And I travel with hotties. Actually, I learned the hard way. When you're in America, and maybe in other countries, by the way, I'd need to double check this. There is a limit as to how many you can travel with. And I entered America. Anyway, they pulled my bag aside. They said, you can't travel with all of this. Like, this is ridiculous. And I was like, oh, sorry. And I had a medical letter from my doctor for my medications, and it stipulated on the letter that I had endometriosis. And the woman who was going through my bag, she looked at me and she's like, all right, but never again. She's like, you definitely have brought too many of these into the country. She's like, we sell these here. I was like, I panicked. I didn't know if you did. Of course they do it, like a CVS. Of course they've got them. Anyway, I travel with those and they're fantastic because sometimes my pelvis and my lower back can get a little bit sore and a little bit tight more than your average person. So I've got to try and keep it warm and keep it limber.
Yeah, right. Okay. This for me, I feel like I've been traveling in a beautiful bubble. I'm really learning. I always learn a lot when I'm talking to you as well. So straight back at you. Yeah, no, got nothing. Yeah, bringing nothing here. I mean, yes, I've changed babies in toilets in airplanes. Gosh, and I tell you what, that is a steep learning curve. Interestingly, I was traveling through Istanbul last year, and it's got a new airport gorgeous new airport. One of the things I noticed there, and I've been looking for them since then in other airports, and I think I saw the other in Qatar as well, and they are quiet rooms.
Oh,
Yeah, so
so good.
that one in Istanbul is actually, it was written on the front. It was a low stimulus room for travellers with dementia and for travellers that suffered in an overstimulated environment. And like in Qatar, I spent 8 hours in that airport, and every announcement was done in 3 languages. And after 3 hours, that starts to feel old. But coming at it from your point of view, that would be like an absolute nightmare for you, wouldn't it?
Yeah, definitely can be. And that's why those rooms are so fantastic. And I'm even noticing sporting stadiums having those now. There's a friend of mine who runs a charity called Friend in Me. And one of the things that she raises funds for is they're kind of like transit vans, I guess. And then she decks them out as a quiet space, and they go to fates so that children can go and have time out. And they go to festivals and create these beautiful spaces for people people and children to have that chill out time. And it's incredible what it does. There are so many people like, oh, who needs them? Well, not the person who's asking the question. But for so many other people, it's actually not that hard to make travel accessible. And if it is by adding a room like that to help people regulate their nervous system and to cool their jets, basically, if they're overstimulated, it is such a fantastic addition. And the airport in Doha, seriously, one of the best. It's so great and it's so spacious, and you do have those places just to calm yourself before you get on the plane. You definitely don't want to be getting on the plane agitated. That goes for anybody, whether you're neurodivergent or not. You could have just had a really tough time. And I look at airports as one of the most magical places in the world. I love being in an airport. There's a side that stresses me out, but I find them so beautiful, and there's gorgeous stories happening in and out of terminals and arrivals and departures, but there's also harrowing ones as well. And while you and I and so many other people, we get to travel because of a positive, some people are traveling because of a negative. And so if you put yourself in their shoes for a moment, and then they've got this room and this space just to center themselves and gather themselves before getting on that flight to do whatever it is that they need to do, I think that that's beautiful.
That's an amazing way to look at it. Really, really well put. Thanks for that, Sarah Marie. I'm going to use this to steer to our last question, which is the question we ask all our guests. And I reckon you're going to bring a good one to the table. What is your most bizarre travel experience?
Okay, this is the first one that sprung to mind. We could probably call it a few other things, but this was my first foray into solo travel. I made a decision that I was going to pack up, leave, go work overseas and backpack. And between making that decision and leaving was approximately 5 weeks. So no real time for my family to adjust to that. I just took off. Anyway, I was super pumped and excited and had all the bravado of somebody my age would, fresh out of uni and wanting to go tackle the world and learn and grow up as quickly as possible, basically. And I had to hop my way to America. So it was Melbourne to Auckland first, Auckland over to LA. Anyway, I had my boarding pass. I was traveling with a couple of other people, and I looked at my boarding pass and I saw that there was a weird code on my boarding pass that looked just a little bit different to the code that they had. The other people had the same code. I did not have that code. And when I landed in Auckland, I was swiftly taken away. And I was taken into a room, and I was moments away from being stripped and searched due to what I believe was mistaken identity with someone that has a very similar name to me. And it wasn't until I was hysterical, and then they checked my birth date, and then they realized that I was not involved in any unbecoming activities. And they eventually let me go, but I had to go through a full interrogation and nearly missed my connecting flight to America. And then I saw that code again. I think I must have been in New York when that happened. And by that stage, I just got ready for it. Like I braced and I thought, okay, I'm going to get taken away here into a room. And I did. It was by no means as terrifying as what happened to me in Auckland. That's nothing against people in Auckland. Like, they're doing their job. My name came up as something for whatever reason. And on that entire trip, it did. And it was a big trip. So I definitely don't hold anything against them. And I've been to Auckland Airport numerous times with many other carriers, and everybody is wonderful and delightful. And I can't wait to go there again. But when you're going through that alone, and, this is 2006 for me. So we weren't connected. We didn't have an iPhone. Are you joking? I probably had like a Nokia 5210. I don't know what I had, but whatever it wasn't calling mum and dad. I didn't have a phone call to them. I just had to go through the motions of being taken away from customs and going into this random room and nearly being strip searched. So, I mean, that'll stay with you.
Oh, I love a good strip search story. I do. And it stayed with you the whole way through. I wonder what the other person had actually done.
They just made traveling in 2006 very difficult for me, but I got there. And funnily enough, when I got into Canada, it didn't happen when I got to Canada. It was just, New York, and Auckland were the two locations where I got pulled aside. I still have the boarding pass with the code, by the way. And I now know, because these articles have come out, like, if you have this code on your boarding pass.
What's the code? What's the code?
Oh, now I need to Google. I feel like is it triple SX?
Oh,
hang on.
That sounds dodgy in itself. Okay, so people, if you've got this code, chances are that you're going to be
maybe not strip searched.
Oh, you might have a check on you from Ozpol or something like that. Sarah Maree, it was awesome to talk to you today. Thanks so much for sharing your experiences, because they're not ones that you hear every day. It's not just a chat about where you went on your holidays. Thanks so much for going deep into that and for giving us some resolutions as well. And we're going to put those ideas in the show notes as well. So have a look in there. And thanks again for coming on The World Awaits.
Thank you so much for having me. And I'm all about sharing tips and tricks. I feel like that is the purpose to life. If you can make something a little bit easier for somebody else, then absolutely. And getting to speak with people like yourself who've been in the industry for such a long time, I feel so blessed. So thank you.
Thanks again.
Gosh, it's so interesting hearing how Sarah Maree manages her anxiety while traveling, and some really good tips in there too for people, with any sort of anxiety issues, really. And we will put all the information in the show notes. And you can follow her on Instagram at Sarah Maree Life.
Our tip this week is for getting the best bang for your buck when shopping duty-free. And a new study from Aussie travel brand Caddy Luggage reveals that some of Australia's busiest airports are actually, come on, let's be shocked, people, charging more than national retailers like BWS, Chemist Warehouse and Sephora for popular duty-free items, sometimes more than $50 for one single item.
Yeah, and sadly, I am not surprised. So I used to, decades ago probably, used to buy all my perfume duty-free because it was so cheap. And then the prices just started going up and up. And in the last sort of 5-10 years, I've just stopped doing it because it's just so much cheaper to get it at the shopping malls.
Yeah, and because we're not the ABC, we can name names everywhere. I think too, it's taken a bit of the romance out of buying perfume, hasn't it? So the report backs your experiences, Kirsty, not that this might be your go-to perfume, but Estee Lauder's beautiful eau de parfum is $30 more expensive in Adelaide and Cairns airports than at Chemist Warehouse.
Yes, no, I'm an Yves Saint Laurent girl. In case you want to buy me some perfume. But yeah, mine is definitely at least $30 cheaper at the chemist in the airport. And the report also found that Penfolds Bin 8 wine is the same price or more expensive at 5 of the 7 airports when compared to Dan Murphy's. And also, Clinique lipstick, I love a bit of Clinique, is $10 more at Gold Coast Airport than any of the other airports.
Oh my goodness. And most of the perfumes I like are out of my own price range, so I just wash myself in them at the duty free. But for the best deal, the report says try Sydney Airport for that same Estee Lauder fragrance, which sells for just $112, which is a $57 saving compared to the most expensive airport that was in the list. Perth Airport has the best single bottle price for Johnnie Walker Black Label, which is a 1 litre, of course. Always important to remember when you're buying alcohol duty free. You get the 1 litre ones, not those 750 ml like little testers that they sell at the BWS. So at Perth, it was that Johnnie Walker was $75, which is a decent saving over BWS's $82. And the real value comes in again at Sydney Airport, where bundle deals make it one of the rare duty-free wins. 2 bottles of Johnnie Walker, so you've got to love it, obviously. 2 bottles for $119, which you would be coughing up $164 at BWS. And if you want to buy 3, it saves you $77. So there you go, whiskey lovers. Personally, I do. You really got to love it. I do what I call the Gindex, which is when I check out how much the Tanqueray is. I take it as a measure all around the world. I'm like, today the Gindex is $37 in Muscat. There you go.
I was going to say, don't ever say that the World Awaits podcast doesn't bring you the best deals. And if you're listening on playback, I'm sure that the relativity will be the same. So Clinique lipstick, do love a bit of lippy, and you, my friend, are synonymous with the red lippy.
Totally, absolutely.
So Clinique's cult favourite Almost lipstick is identical in price at Gold Coast Airport and Sephora, both charging $48, but that's a $10 markup compared to nearly every other airport where the same product is just $38. So if you're flying out of the Gold Coast, you're paying $10 more for the same lipstick.
Oh, sacrilege. Right. Actually, I wear a MAC one, which is what all of the Virgin Australia girls wear as well.
Oh, yes. And didn't you ask them about that when we were at the tennis?
The Qatar girls, I always talk lipstick with them. I love talking lipstick with air hostess. So, because they've always got, their lips stay on. They do. In a 14-hour flight. So I always ask them, and I've got to say, and they look secret. They look good. They always look gorgeous. The secret is, Kirsty, I'm going to share it with you, lip paint. Lip paint. So you whack a lip paint on underneath, you put the color over the top, and then a sealer if you need it. And you don't need to touch up till you touch down. So let me see. What else did we find out about that from that report? Oh, look, here we go. We've got some more bargains coming in here. One of the few products where duty-free actually delivers is Grey Goose. The 1 litre was consistently cheaper than BWS, which it lists at $105. And if you are in airports, you will pick it up for $86 in Perth and $89 in Melbourne or Brisbane. The catch is it wasn't available online at the time of research at Sydney or the Gold Coast. So we're kind of limiting your options if you're flying out from those hubs. But why don't you, they could always drop us a line and tell us your great duty-free wins. I would love to hear that.
Yes, I would too. So the key takeout from all of this, sadly, the days of cheap duty-free are over, my friends. Do your homework and price things up before you go so you know if you're being ripped off. Next week, I'm going to take you to sunny Queensland to talk all things Noosa. You can expect whale watching, biking, hiking, and I'll explain exactly why a weekend in this popular Sunshine Coast resort area should be on your travel to-do list.
And we'd love it if you joined us on socials. You'll find us at The World Awaits podcast on Instagram, Facebook, and on LinkedIn. So feel free to drop us a line at hello@theworldawaits.au. And if you are enjoying this episode, give us a rating or a review. And don't forget, we still have got a giveaway of Ultimate Dive Sites, which is by our guest Todd Stinios from a couple of weeks ago. So if you need to know where to dive around the world, that is a book for you. Jump on the Instagram and put your name in to win.
That's a wrap for The World Awaits this week. Click to subscribe anywhere you listen to your favourite pods.
Thanks for listening. See you next week.